Hey programmers! We are continuing our series with our blog app. Now we want to see if we can add a new blog and how that works with our Phoenix backend. Let's take a look. Hey guys, so let's take a look here. This is what we had before in our last video. We have a home button, we have a post button, and it's retrieving information from our Phoenix backend. Right now we only have one record. So let's add a way to add new records. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the program here and type in Ember new. We're going to call it a route. Actually, excuse me, Ember G route, and we're going to call it new. All right. And so we're going to look at our new route here. Now, if we look at the router.js, we can see now we have a route called new, and we have new here. So before we get too far, let's take a look at new here, and we'll call it add new record, add new post. This is a blogging app. We're listing all our posts there. Now we're just going to add a new post. I guess you could say this is the same thing like with like a Twitter app would work similarly. We can kind of think the same concept. Let's go ahead and create a component. We'll call it new post. And so here's our new, here's posts, and here is, if we go to components, new post, here's what's in here. So in here we want to have three things. So I'm just going to add a break here, and then we're going to add in a title. And we're going to use the Ember input helpers. So if we look here at the official documentation, and we could probably just look at the guides, might be easier, because I'm not sure exactly where they're in the tutorials. So we go to, let's just do input helper text field. So you can see here we can add these text fields. So I won't go into too much on maybe a future videos. We can talk difference about creating your own input and then instead of using the input helpers. But for now we're just going to use this, and we're going to call this value equal title. And we want to have title body. We're going to call this body. And we're going to call this author, and call this author. Okay. So now we have title, body, and author, and then we're going to have a button. And we're just going to put an action on it. An action will be add new. And we'll just have a submit button. And by the way, when you add an action like this, it prevents the default, so it won't try to, like, we don't have any forms here, so, but what this will do is just trigger the action that we have, is what I'm trying to say. So now we have our component here, and now we can go ahead and go back to our new, and let's make that H2, doesn't really matter, H2, and now we'll add our new post. Let's see what it looks like if we just Ember S. Actually, let's create it with the proxy. Okay. And here's our home. So let's add to home. Let's go back to our application. And we'll create a new one called, well, let's call it add post, add posts. And this will go to new. So now we have a new, and we'll just put a break here. And see, now we have add posts. And just to make this look a little tiny bit nicer than it does, which is our new post component, this one right here, we'll just add breaks to the end. Like I said, this looks pretty ugly. We'll fix it later. So at least we now have add new post, title, body, author. We have posts and add posts, and if we want to, we can go back to our application. I guess we could wrap this all in the header. H1. And then we'll take out this break. So now it's all on the top. So home, we have nothing. Add posts, list of posts. Now we want to try to submit this to our backend. So we want to do that. So in here we have this link to add posts. Now let's make sure we can actually get it to talking to our component. So we're going to go back to the new post, and we're going to create an actions hash, and we're going to create add new, and we're just going to create an alert box. Just make sure when we hit it works. So okay, hello. Actually, you can't see that in here, but it creates a hello box. Just because the way I have my recorder set up, you don't see it, but it is working. When I hit it, it did show it. And I guess we could instead, I'll do console.log. Make sure you guys can see that. Hello. Okay, and then now if we look at the console, you can see you see hello. So we know it's talking. It's working as expected. But now we have kind of a problem at this point. To be able to add a new post, we need to have access to the model. Now we can pass the model in because our route and controller have access to the model. But then in that case, that means that we're kind of going above what we should be doing. We're having our component mutate data. And really in Ember, the way we want to do things is we care about data down, actions up. So we send the data down to our component, and then if it needs to make any changes to that data, it sends it back to somewhere else in the application, either the controller or the router, to actually make the changes for it. Now, right now, if we did it this way, we would actually be making changes to the data, and that kind of loses it kind of makes it not as reusable in some aspects, and you won't know where you can't easily make changes as easily, is what I'm trying to say. So let's not do this add new here. Let's delete this add new, this action, the component. Well, we could show you a couple days. Let's add the new back, now that I think about it. And we can create a new controller for our new. So we don't have any controllers right now. And in a previous video, I talked about the route action helper, which can allow us to bypass. We can bypass the controller and have the actions in the router instead of the controller. But for this simple example, we're going to just leave the actions in the controller and not worry about that. And we're going to try to use closure actions. So Ember.js, we're going to create the controller for the new. And we'll go ahead and start the server again. So now we have this new controller. And we can create add new here. Once again, actions. And we're going to create an action called add new. And just to make sure this works, I'll put console log from controller. And now inside our component here, our new post, we have this action called add new, and what this will do is it'll trigger the action inside our component for new post, which is right here. Now you could do something like this where you try to get the properties of this. What we could do is right here we can pass in the closure action. So let me do that real quickly. So if we go back to our new, we could do something like this where we could add new equals add new, and we actually want to wrap that in an action. Action add new. So when add new is triggered, it actually creates the action, or puts the action from the controller. That's what I'm trying to say. And then we would have to go to new post here, and we can do this dot. We have to find the this dot get, and we get add new, and then we invoke it. So let's see if that works. Add post. Oh, we have a problem. Let's take a look at this source console. Ember error. Assertion for action passes null or undefined action from my block controller new. So let's take a look here. Go back to posts. I think we need to actually wrap this quotes. There we go. Now we hit submit from controller. So you can see here on the screen from controller. So now it's gathering it from controller. But really, if we look at what we're doing here, this is the new. And we go back to components new. This action doesn't really do much for us. All it does is it just invokes the add new that we passed in. So we can actually do something like this. We can delete it. Now if we click on it, it doesn't work. But if we go back to our template, go back to our new post, we can actually pass in the other action. So we can go action add new here without the quotes. And so what this is saying is we're going to take the action add new here, then pass it in. This is the action that's passed in called add new, and we're going to invoke that action when you hit the submit button. So let's try that. So we're going to save it. And we're going to open up our console. Yep, see from controller. So you can still see it is still working. And on top of that, we can actually pass the values of all this stuff. So we can pass in title, body, and author. And if we go back to, let's close a few of these. Here's our new. Go back to our controller. We now have title. I mean, we have all our arguments. We can use something like a spread operator and look at them all, but well, let's do that. Let's do args. And we'll just pass in args here and see if it sends them. So we're going to put title, body, author. We're going to hit the submit button. And you can see here, here's an array, title, body, and author. So we know that it's getting passed into the controller. So now the controller has access to title, body, and author. So we know that the controller have access to the store. So now we can do something called create record. So we can this.get store. Let me make sure I have this right here. Yep, let's do this. We can call this rec. Let's do let rec equals this.get store. And then we're going to do let post equals rec create record for post. And then this record's going to have a title. And we're going to pass in the title, and body, we're going to pass in the body. Excuse me. And author, we're going to pass in the author. And then we're going to, this actually create record returns back a model. And then this model has something called save. So then we can do a save on this. And then just in case if for some reason this didn't fail, it's thenable, so we can kind of take a look at it here. And then we just put in this, and we want to transition back to just the home for now. And there's something called transition to route application that we can do that. So kind of a lot of Ember-y stuff here. So what we're doing is we're getting the store that's within the whole application. We're invoking something called create record. We're passing the title, body, author. Then this actually doesn't actually create the record until you hit save. And when you hit the save, this is when it does the HTTP post to the localhost and whatever, unless we proxy it, 4200. In this case, we're using the adapter, which is API, and then it'll put it to posts, and it'll post the record to there in the JSON API compliant format. So let's take a look what happens when we do that. So I'm gonna have the console here. So we'll test. It's called title 1, body 1, author 1. We hit submit. Oh, we got a big error. So this is a problem. So we get look at right here, and so Phoenix kind of blew up on us here. It said bad request to blog post controller, create no matching action, closure to process request. And if we switch over here, we have a big old error, which is hard to see. You can see here, bad request. It's basically saying the same thing it threw up there, that it doesn't work. So let me switch over to our Phoenix app, and we can take a look at that. Give me 1 second. Okay, here's our Phoenix app here. And we can take a look at our controllers and our post controller. And we have our index, create, show, and update. And if we stop our Phoenix server, we can run mix Phoenix routes. And we can see we have a post, API posts, POSTS, and blog.postController create. So we can see, well, that's weird. Why didn't it work? So if you do a post to the API posts, it's supposed to trigger the create in our controller. And here it is right here. Here is our create up here. And we can see we have the data, and this is our connection. But we could see right away, we're actually, if we take a look at where we're sending author 1, attributes author 1, body 1, title 1. That's fine. But then we do type equal posts. And if we look here in our create, we have title equals post, not posts. So since this doesn't match, this pattern matching doesn't work, it doesn't get into this create in our controller. So it just fails because there's nothing that it can work with. So we can do this a couple ways. We can just change this to posts. Another thing we can do is we can create a new one that just points back to the post one. So instead of, we'll do this, data. And there's more than one way of doing this in Phoenix. But we can do it this way. And we'll call this posts this time. And you can do it still attributes. We kind of want the same format. And we'll do post params here. And it'll actually complain about us if we put underscore in there because it needs it. So then we just call create. And we put in the same information. In fact, let me just do that. And we'll delete too many of these. So what this is saying is when we get a request in with type equal posts, go ahead and just call the post, which we'll do like this. So just call post. with this data. So let's see if that works. Let's first make sure our Phoenix server can start again. Oops. Okay, it says data is unused, but we don't really need to worry about that right this second. I mean, I guess we could do something like and doesn't like it here. We'll see if that works. Start the server again, didn't give us any errors. And if we reload it, okay, we have our normal information here. So let's go back to our blogging app. Take a look what happens. We're gonna just refresh it. We call it title 1, body 1, author 1. That's all we have here. Let's submit it. Okay, great. It looks like it submitted it correctly this time, and it redirected us back to the application. So we click posts. Now we see our list of posts, which includes title 1, body 1, and author 1, and then the original one, test title. And if we run it back in our API, now we see we have 2 records. We have the post with test title and the title 1, body 1, author 1. So now we can see we have created, with our Phoenix application Ember, a way to create new posts, which was pretty easy. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. If you like this video, click the subscribe button. That really helps me. And thank you, and have a great day.